The impact of the ongoing closure of the Strait of Hormuz is extending well beyond oil, as some 2,000 ships wait to transport a variety of essential goods around the world. That includes key ingredients for producing fertilizer, causing new concern for farmers and the risk of food shortages for millions of people. MS Now international reporter Ines de la Cuetara has more.
Year after year, hard work pays off at Huglow Farms in the countryside of Kent in the UK, a summer burst of strawberries.
These were planted last year in July. We took one crop off them and then we overwintered them, and now they've just started harvest.
But this year, the typically sunny harvest season, clouded by a conflict thousands of miles away. The deadlock in the Strait of Hormuz has seen gas prices rise, while fertilizer supplies are dwindling.
Just looking at this crop, we need to get a certain output, and without fertilizers, we wouldn't be able to do that. You know, the flavour wouldn't be as good, and the productivity would be lower. So it's just not sustainable.
The impact is being felt by farmers around the world.
This will all go to a mill in the UK and be milled up for flour to go into bread.
But the concerns are even greater for arable farmers.
It's essential. Without fertiliser, we'd have a very pale, very small crop here. It wouldn't yield.
Experts are sounding the alarm. The World Food Programme warning that if the crisis doesn't finish by the end of June, 45 million people will be at risk from hunger and starvation worldwide. Those who already don't have enough to eat, likely to pay the price for a standoff they have no control of.
Famine is always preventable. Famine is always a man-made, human-made crisis.
And for countries already experiencing catastrophic levels of food insecurity, even a quick resolution may not be enough to avoid the worst outcomes.
For some, it's already too late. Even if supplies were to start flowing today, it takes time to ship and to bring to market these critical inputs. Even with immediate action, we're already going to see an increase in humanitarian need.
In the U.S., that could mean higher prices at the grocery store, as some farmers may pass the costs on to consumers. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows prices in April rose 3.8% from a year earlier, marking an increase from the year-over-year inflation rate of 3.3%. But back on the farm, Tom Sewell says raising prices is not an option, given the strong competition from around the world.
We grow this crop of wheat just like someone in Ukraine or Argentina or Australia or Brazil or whatever. So we can't just say to the consumer, well, we're going to put the price up, because they can go and buy it somewhere else.
While many farmers had already purchased fertilizer for the year before the war broke out, the effects could become more obvious in time. So Tom says wheat farmers are now talking about potentially not planting their fields next year.
The economics of growing a crop of wheat now is so tight that some farmers are saying, well, you know, we could leave it fallow for a year and lose less money than growing a crop and losing a lot of money.
And with no end in sight to the deadlock in the Middle East, the fear is the consequences here will only worsen in the months ahead. Ines de la Cuetara, MS Now, Kent, England.
All right, so Steve Ratner, talk a little bit more, if you could, about the economic impact of what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz, but also how China could help with this, and what would that look like?
Well, the Strait of Hormuz, as we know, being closed is a huge problem. And as your piece just said, it's not just oil, although the oil is a very big part of it. Mm-hmm. If you talk about oil, what's going on out there is that we are drawing down world inventories very, very quickly, which means that prices are just going to continue to go up. It also means that even if the strait reopens, it's going to take a good while to unwind all of this. There are a whole different set of kinds of reports about how much damage has been done to oil facilities in the Middle East. We don't really know. At least I don't really know. They're not saying publicly. And that may have an impact on future oil production. But as the report said, a lot of other things like fertilizer and plastics and things and chemicals come through the Gulf. And not having those supplies is going to create world disruption. You saw our consumer price index report 2 days ago, and you saw our producer price report yesterday. And those are really tough numbers, and they're just simply going to show inflation rising over the next few months at least. And that's going to put the Fed in an unusual position. So none of this is really good for us or for the rest of the world. In terms of China, look, I'll defer to Richard on some of this too, but China obviously gets, as I said before, 30% of its oil roughly through the strait. Mm-hmm. So they have a huge incentive to get this thing open. That said, they don't seem to be doing a heck of a lot to actually accomplish that.
Yeah, it's not clear how much influence they really have. I think what the Chinese also want to avoid is the war restarting, and once again, the energy infrastructure of the region getting destroyed. That would be a nightmare for them. So they could be helpful at margins, but they're not going to be decisive here.